Can everyone see me now, right now? Okay, so thank you, Yanchu, and thank you, UW Taiwan Studies Program for inviting me here. And I should say good evening to people in Seattle and good morning for the people in Taiwan. I'm Po-Yi Hong, Associate Professor in Geography at National Taiwan University. So right now, I probably have to share my PowerPoint with you guys. So hold on a second. Okay, so here is the title of my talk today is Taiwan's Food, Agriculture, History, Environment, and Challenges. And it's the outline of my talk today. So first of all, I want to situate Taiwan in the globalization and localization of food and agriculture. It's more like a general picture that everybody in the world has probably experienced this kind of two ways of food and agriculture development, the power between globalization and localization. And then I will talk about Taiwan, but I will kind of generally separate it into two dimensions. One is the food and agriculture inside Taiwan. Okay, then I will talk about more like a historical overview and the challenges we have today in Taiwan. But the agriculture of food and of Taiwan is not just something inside Taiwan. I want to talk more about the inside out Taiwan's food and agriculture. For example, like bubble teas. I hope you guys for some time enjoy the bubble tea of, more like right now it's kind of a national symbol of Taiwan's food. And, the bubble tea, behind the story of bubble tea is also about, the agriculture transfer and the food culture transfer outside Taiwan, from Taiwan to the other places. So generally, I will separate my talk into these three dimensions. Okay, and since I'm a geographer, so my story is based on my own discipline training, right? So as a geographer, I want to talk about, when we talk about food and agriculture of Taiwan, as a geographer, I usually have like a perspective. So human geographer, I'm a human geographer. So human geography is about recognizing and understanding the interdependence among places like Taiwan, right? The relationship between Taiwan and the other places. The story I will talk about later is the interdependence between Taiwan and Southeast Asia, the agricultural transfer between Taiwan and Southeast Asia. But at the same time, without losing the sight of the uniqueness of each specific places, like Taiwan, we have our own historical context, political context, economic context. Then we have to talk about it instead of just focus on the interdependence among places. At the same time, we also have to think about what kind of the uniqueness Taiwan has to form this kind of agriculture and food situation. So I just want to provide a general perspective I have as a geographer. Okay, so food and agriculture and globalization, industrialization, right? So we are now living in this kind of world, right? So for example, from this picture, it's the global poultry trade map, right? So the chicken, the pork, beef. So everything, like, for example, bubble tea, right? So tea, coffee, almost every kind of food right now, today we have right now, is not just produced locally. We actually living in a really globalized world, including food and agriculture. So we import, export a lot of food products, and we consume them every day. Okay, so like the map shows here. And it's not just about food per se, right? It's not just about the economic dimension, the international trade. It's also about the culture, right? So, for example, the fast food culture from the United States. Here in Taiwan, you can see like McDonald's, Burger King, Kentucky Fried Chicken, Domino Pizza, Subways. Like at the corner of Taipei City, you can easily get into these kind of stores and have the so-called the fast food. Okay, so the globalization of food and agriculture is not just about the commodity, right? It's also the culture behind the commodity. So I think it's kind of a picture or the everyday life, almost everyday life we have at every corner around the world. Okay, so Taiwan also, has been situated in this kind of scenarios. So when we talk about the globalization of food and agriculture in geography, for example, then we have concerns. We also have some kind of reflections on this kind of globalization world. So we talk about, for example, the politics of homogenization. So food globalization or agricultural globalization in three analytical paths. It's from Lynn Phillips. So for example, the first dimension we want to focus or we want to talk about, it's about the international circulation of food products as commodities. Poultry, right? Just like the picture I showed you guys, at the previous slide, and beef, rice, fast food, tea, coffee, every kind of things, the food products, they become the commodities and travel to every places around the world. So we want to talk about that this kind of international circulation. Food is not just to feed people. Food is also a kind of commodities for people to earn money, for the different country to build up their international relationship, these kind of things. Okay, and the second one is the transnational expansion of food-based corporations, McDonald's, like Starbucks, right? If you guys have the chance to come to Taipei, then you will see, oh my goodness, we have a lot of Starbucks. Okay, so this kind of big company, transnational expansion of food-based corporation is also, for example, bring a really big, great power to influence the local food cultures in Taiwan, right? So it's not just about the fast food is healthy or not. It's also about through this kind of transnational expansion of food-based corporation, what kind of different food culture we are experiencing right now here in Taiwan or the other places in the world. Okay, so we have to think about that, right? For example, like I remember when I was a child, my breakfast was always like the rice or something like that. But today, for most of the younger generations in Taiwan, probably they will just go to McDonald's, for their breakfast. Okay, so this kind of different kind of food consumption also means the different kind of food cultures happening in Taiwan or the other places in the world. Okay, so number one and number two, we have to think about that. And at the same time, number three is the global governance of food and food issues, right? For example, like WTO, right? So food production is not just about something happen locally here in Taiwan, right? So for example, when Taiwan joined the WTO, the World Trade Organization, at the year of 2002, then everything changed because many kind of foods we can import from the other country with the really cheap price. And there will also, of course, these kind of things will seriously affect the original agriculture practices here in Taiwan, right? So like, for example, the farmers in Taiwan, they immediately face the competition from the other country, right? So, but for Taiwan, we want to join the WTO. We also try to get involved this kind of international food and agriculture organization to try to have more connections, trading partnership with the other countries all around the world. Okay, and for example, right now we have another global governance of food and food issues. For example, right now we have the organic food production, right? And they have the kind of the certification, worldwide. Okay, for example, if Taiwanese farmers, they want to sell their food product to, for example, European country, they have to follow the rule of the organic certificate initiated by the European country, right? So you see a lot of this kind of international interactions in terms of global governance of food and food issues. Okay, in terms of the try to build up the more healthy systems. For example, the organic certification systems all around the world, or we want to enhance the international trade between different countries in terms of food and agriculture development. So we have these three dimensions, the general dimensions in terms of food and agriculture, the globalization of food and agriculture in our world. And of course, Taiwan has been situated in these kind of scenarios. So the global food systems is just like the complicated map here, right? So you can draw a lot of lines, all around the world. We all connected together right now. But it also creates the environmental problems, right? So next slide shows that because of the globalization of the food and agriculture, simultaneously, most of the time, it also means the industrialization of food and agriculture. We have a lot of monocropping right now, and we in order to reduce the cost of plantation or something like that, and probably we actually take the food and agriculture product as a commodity, right? So for the commodity, the purpose is to earn more money, but sometimes we sacrifice our environment, right? In terms of try to enhance the globalization of food and agriculture. For example, Rachel Carson, her famous book Silent Spring, she criticizes the impact of the pesticides, right? And also the land use. We change our landscape a lot, right? Because of the globalization of agriculture and food production. So for example, we have right now, we all face the problems of soil degradation and denudation. So we have to think about that kind of issues at the same time. Okay, so because we face a lot of problems after the globalization of food and agriculture, the environmental issues, and also maybe we also want to think about the food safety issues, because right now, for example, we almost cannot know who the producers of our food, right? So for example, if we import chicken, pork, beef, that kind of food from the other countries, right? So in Taiwan, we almost cannot know who exactly produce our food, right? So after the globalization of food and agriculture, especially the negative impacts upon our everyday life, the environmental issues, the food safety issues, the food security issues. So people try to, change their kind of scenarios from the relocalization movement. We want to, to be more against the globalization and try to reconsider the value of local food production. Okay, so we want to somehow go back to the world we had in the past, when all of the food and agriculture, most of the food products has been produced locally, not globally. Okay, so people have a lot of actions try to do that kind of things. That is because we have confronted with the problems from the globalization of food and agriculture systems, just like I said, the environmental issues, food safety issues. And then we try to, demand for a respecialization. What does that mean? Respecialization is from the global to the local, right? Global is kind of a big scale. It's the the space of the big scale. It's the global space. Local is more like small scale space. So we want to respecialize. We want the respecialization of the food and agriculture production and consumption for the health purpose, for the environmental purpose, this kind of things. Okay, so then in general, we right now try to highlight the value of local food system, LFS. According to geographer Robert Fegan. So local food system is more like a loose subsumption of the alternative and oppositional food system ideas. Oppositional food system ideas against the globalization one, the globalized one. Okay, so it's the different, or we have the different orientations of respecialization of food and agriculture. So Robert Fegan, geographer, try to highlight 4 dimensions of it. First of all, we want to shorten the food chains, right? We want to know who exactly is the producers of our food, right? As a consumer, we want to know our producer. We want to know the names of the farmers, for example. So right now we have the like here in Taiwan, we have the farmers market. I believe in the United States too, right? We have farmers market. You can directly buy your food from the farmers, right? And the second one is that we want to highlight the terroir. Is kind of a French term. We want to highlight or reconsider the value of the local food culture. And we want to know the origin of our food. So we want to highlight the importance of the labels of the origin. We want to know where exactly our food is from, right? So this, I think in Taiwan too, and in the United States too, when you buy some food, you can always check, from the tag, right? From the tag, maybe you can check to where is the food from. Okay, so that kind of things. And then we want to highlight the importance of the community. So we want to go back to, for example, the community-based food production and consumption. We want to know each other. And food and agriculture for the community is not just for the food and agriculture per se. We also want to build up the sense of community from food and agriculture, right? So community has become a key terms right now in terms of the respecialization of food and agriculture from global to the local. Okay, and the last one is the quality turn. Quality turn is more like a complicated idea, but in general, we want to build up the trust. Okay, the trust between the consumers and producers. For example, in Taiwan, like my own mom, my mom always liked to go to so-called traditional market, because all of the producers or the people, my mom loved to go to the traditional market in Taiwan because in the market, almost everyone is her friends. Okay, so they have the mutual trust. So this kind of the trust, can enhance the the closer relationship between the consumers and the producers. And also probably they can also reduce the risk of food security issue, food safety issues, right? So compared to the globalization of food and agriculture, because we don't know who the producers of our food, right? So it's hardly for us to have the mutual trust between people. You can say you can trust a big company, a food company, but at the same time, the so-called the big companies of the food companies, they also create a lot of food issues around our life, right? So we actually try to, you know, rebuild the trust between consumers and producers. So that is kind of a general meaning of so-called the quality turn here. And spatially, we also try to have agriculture not just in the rural area. We want to build up the urban agriculture. We want to know our food. We want to have our food not just, you know, come from someplace far away from our life, right? So right now we are living in a world like most of the people living in the urban area. So we are also at the same time try to, in the urban space, try to build up the agriculture plantation here. It's the, so for example, we can use the urban rooftop, like the picture here in China. In Taiwan, we also have the kind of landscape, urban landscape here, the urban rooftop gardens, and we want to, you know, directly pick up the vegetables, for example, every day from our rooftop, and then you can feel safe, right? The vegetables are directly from our own gardens of our own buildings, something like that. And for the urban gardening movement, for example, in Detroit here, right? So it's not just for, just like I said, it's not just for the agriculture, it's also a function for building up a closer sense of community, right, in the city area. Okay, so these kind of things are happening all around the world right now. But at the same time, we have to be careful about this kind of a different scenario between the global and the local. Geographers actually try to say something, you know, we cannot romanticize the local production, or, you know, try to, when we hear the word globalization, then we try to blame everything on globalization. Geographers has a term called Scalar Trap. Okay, so what Scalar Trap is? So it's the assumption that scales have characteristics that produce fixed outcomes. You know, has been termed the Scalar Trap by geographers Brown and Purcell. So that means that, for example, you think everything local is good, everything global is bad and evil. Not necessarily that, right? So we have to be careful in this kind of binary opposition. Okay, so assume that local political control of resources result in more sustainable human-environment relations than organization at other scale, right? So that means that sometimes, yes, we probably will try to do a lot of things, so-called the relocalization of food and agriculture, and we want to highlight or reconsider the value of local food and agricultural production. But at the same time, probably then we will romanticize everything at the local scale. But the truth is, you know, maybe not everything at the local level is good and sustainable. At the same time, not everything global is bad, evil, and not sustainable. So we don't want to fall into the Scalar Trap here. So that's the general context I want to highlight first before I go into the stories of Taiwan's food and agriculture. So for the future geographies, so probably, you know, I want to use the case in Taiwan to emphasize these three dimensions too. Okay, so we have to recognize the shortcomings, strength of both globalized and industrialized agriculture, and at the same time, the localized, sustainable or organic methods. Okay, pros and cons. They all have the pros and cons here. So we need more knowledge about how to manage the inputs and the ecosystems. And I think the most important point we want to have is no one size fits all solution. So Taiwan has the specific cultural, political, economic context here. Although Taiwan has been situated in the globalized world, but at the same time, we want to think about Taiwan as a unique place. We need to figure out the unique solution we need to deal with the food and agriculture problems here in Taiwan. So what about Taiwan? Okay. Okay, so the picture here is the beautiful mountain valley in Taiwan. So at the bottom of the valley, you can see, some, the plantation fields at the bottom. Okay, so food and agriculture in Taiwan, I think I want to highlight the keyword here is the household smallholders. So later I will explain what is the smallholder in Taiwan. And then I will briefly talk about the three phases regarding the transformation of smallholders in Taiwan. Okay. So what is the smallholders in Taiwan? So the picture at the right-hand side here is the book edited by some geographers and sociologists. And I had a chapter specifically about Taiwan in this book. We talk about the Asian smallholders in comparative perspective. So in Taiwan, I think household production matters. I think the situation in Taiwan is really different from the situation in the United States. When I was a graduate student in the United States, I got my PhD from the University of Wisconsin and Madison. So Wisconsin is like the agriculture states, right? So you guys got a really big area of plantation, cornfield, like the big lands, and you guys use the big machines to harvest your products, that kind of things. But in Taiwan, actually, we don't really have that kind of big company, agricultural big companies. Household production matters because most of the agriculture production is based on household. Okay. So we have the relatively small area for each household production, and we don't really have like the transnational or international big agricultural companies here in Taiwan. Most of the production is based on this the household production of smallholders. But still, we experienced the transformation of food and agriculture system. So we have the three general phases of transformation, and I want to clarify that these three general phases of transformation it's kind of it's general. So inside each phase, of course, if you really want to go into the detail, you will see much more complicated scenarios. So here I only use it's kind of general divisions, separations to talk about the transformations in Taiwan. So first period is prior the 1960s. So I called it the pre-industrialization phase. So basically, in this phase, it's the food and agriculture here in Taiwan retain the structure of household production as agrarian produce did not undergo any thorough commercialization. But I want to point out again that different kind of crops has different stories. For example, the sugar cans. Sugar cans is a kind of a different story from, for example, the rice. Okay. So, but basically the pre-industrialization phase here, we use agriculture to support the industrialization for the non-agricultural sectors, okay? And at the same time, we didn't really build up the so-called the big companies to go for the thorough commercialization of food and agriculture production and consumption. Okay, so household here is still the major force, was still the major force for food and agriculture production here. And the second phase, I called it industrialization, and generates from the 1960s to early 2000s. So Taiwan, during this period of time, we experienced the rapid urbanization, and then then resulted in the substantial displacement of agricultural labor from rural areas and the restructuring of agriculture by the intensive forces of capitalist production and consumption. So I was born in 1974. So I remember, when I was a child, I was raised in the rural area in Taiwan. So, when I was a child, many neighbors I had, they moved to Taipei, for example. They want to so-called got a better job in urban area. And at the same time, at that period, Taiwanese government built up a lot of, for example, in industrial parks around the urban area. And this kind of development actually attract a lot of rural population, move from the rural area to the urban area. So the result is that we have lost a lot of agricultural labor at that time. Okay, so most of the people, for example, like my parents, or some older generations, they would told me that when I was a child, they would tell me that, don't be a farmers, So doing agriculture at that time for people is something like lagging behind, is not modern, it's so-called not a good job. Agriculture, being a farmer or being a owner of a household production, it's not something good for your future, something like that. So the value of agriculture at that time, I would say, somehow has been substantially devalued, but things has been changed right now. So after 2000s, the year of 2000s, because just like I told you, we experienced a lot of issues of like the food safety issues, environmental issues in Taiwan because of the industrialization, right? So we want to reconsider the value of local production. We want to reconsider the meaning of agriculture in Taiwan. So after the early 2000s, we have the emergence and the redefinition of agriculture and food production and consumption. So after the concerns of food security and safety came to the fore from the 2000 onwards, smallholders have re-emerged as a countering force. Okay, so smallholder is not something lagging behind or not modern anymore. Okay, it's kind of a countering force to processes of the agricultural industrialization and globalization. So, for example, right now, many younger generation, they actually will go back to the rural area to do the agricultural practices or take the agriculture as their careers. But at the same time, they also bring a lot of new ideas, new agricultural practices, for example, organic production, back to the rural area in Taiwan. So you see this kind of change here in Taiwan right now. Okay, so the distribution, of the smallholders in Taiwan, but basically it's in the planned area. So when you see the map here of Taiwan, you can see the green colors. So most of the green colors are the agricultural areas in Taiwan. Okay, but we also have the mountain agriculture. So you can see the brown color area. Taiwan is a mountainous island. Most of the area mountains you can see from the map, but we can have the sporadic agricultural practices inside the mountains too. Okay, so we don't have too much land for the agricultural practices. So right now we also have some situations we have to think about here in Taiwan. So although after 2000s, the year of 2000s, we start to reconsider the value of agriculture, and more and more younger generation, they are willing to go back to the rural area to take agriculture as their career. But still, the industrialization of non-agriculture sectors still happening a lot in Taiwan. We still, our government, still try to transform a lot of agricultural lands at the rural area Taiwan, like transform this kind of land, agricultural land, into, for example, the industrial park for electronic industries, something like that. So industrialization of non-agriculture sectors still, transform a lot of agricultural lands into another uses. Okay. The other thing we still have to seriously to think about and talk about is the outflow and aging of the rural population. So even if we want to reevaluate or reconsider the value of the agriculture in Taiwan, but if we don't have people in the rural area to do the agriculture, then nothing will happen, right? So we still have to think about how to attract more people to do the agriculture, especially in the rural area. Okay, so still in Taiwan, urban areas still attract more and more people to move from the rural area to the cities to enjoy so-called the city lives and modern lives, that kind of things. But I think this kind of situation it will cause a lot of problems in terms of if we want to revitalize the agriculture here in Taiwan. Then we need to think about where the people are, who will do the agriculture in the future. Okay, but at the same time, on the bright side is the involvement of the new actors. Just like I say, that we have the younger generations to go back to the rural area to really do the agricultures with the new ideas. For example, the organic productions here, but in general, we still have the issues facing smallholders in Taiwan. First of all, is I think that the general theme here, the general point here is the conundrum between conventional agriculture and local food movement here. So I will separate it into 3 dimensions to talk about this. The first one is the physical restrictions in developing the organic farming, and then the challenges on aging and shortage of the rural labor, and then the dichotomy between production and consumption of the local food movement here. Okay, so the physical restriction in developing organic farming here. This picture is the countryside of Taiwan. So you can see we only have the small area of the the farming lands. So for example, if one farmer, he or she want to do the organic production, he or she has to convince almost all the community to do the same thing. If he or she doesn't do so, only one piece of them to do the organic farming, but the other the neighboring lands still do the conventional farming system, then, for example, the pesticide will easily go into the organic farming land, right? So this kind of issue we have to think about, okay? This is the physical restriction. We only have the small lands to do our farming, and each small lands belongs to each household. Then how can we, try to initiate the collective action to do the organic farming together? I think that's the issue we have to think about in the future. The other things, of course, is the challenges on aging and shortage of the rural labor here. So in the rural area in Taiwan, I think if you are 60 years old, you will be considered young. Okay, so this kind of issues we have to think about and talk about. And last one is the dichotomy between production and consumption of local food movement. Because of the local food movement right now, for example, the organic production, the organic consumers, they don't really understand the real situation in the rural area of Taiwan. So they consume the organic food with somehow the romantic stories in their minds. They think they will have they consume the organic food production or the local food production directly help the agriculture in Taiwan, but they don't really understand, for example, the physical restrictions of Taiwan's farming lands or the aging issues in the rural area. So although, the consumption of the local food or the organic food could be a kind of force to reconfigure the agro-food systems in Taiwan, but we need more mutual understandings between the production side and the consumption side. Okay, so these kind of things we have to think more. Future prospect, we need people. Okay, so I want to really highlight that kind of issue. We need people in Taiwan's rural area. So this picture is what? It's the farming land has been sold out a lot because the old people, when they getting older and older, they cannot do the agricultural practices anymore. And if we don't have people to really go back to the farming lands, the agricultural lands, to take on the agricultural practices, things will, for example, like this picture, the real estate, will get into this get into the rural area and try to sell all of the farming lands, agricultural lands for another purpose. So we are losing a lot of agricultural lands right now. Okay, so we have to think about that as a serious problem we had. So I noticed the time, I talk too much. So I really want to talk a little bit about the reposition of Taiwan outside Taiwan via food and agriculture. So, the situation I just talked is something inside Taiwan, right? So I want to briefly talk about, something outside Taiwan, Taiwan inside out, the regionalization of, I want to use tea as an example to talk about that. So I want to highlight that the mobility of tea, tea, the red line here is the tea has been migrated from China to Taiwan, and then we built up our own Taiwanese tea production and consumption system. And then we also the tea species and the tea production technology also moved to Southeast Asia a lot. And also a lot of Taiwanese people, they actually produce tea in Southeast Asia and then sell their tea back to Taiwan. Okay, that's my research. I will talk about the situations in Thailand and Vietnam a little bit. So Thailand, okay, the Golden Triangle. In the past, we think they are all, the opium production there. But right now, they plant tea. People at Northern Thailand, they plant tea, and the tea species and, farming technology, processing technology. Most of these kind of things were from Taiwan, okay, Taiwan inside out. So a group of people actually, they are the KMT soldiers. During the civil war of the Chinese Civil War, a group of people actually, they retreated, the KMT soldier, they retreated from mainland China to Myanmar and then to Northern Thailand. Now they are tea farmers. They are not soldiers anymore. So that's the map. I did my field work. So the number 1, 2, 3 are the major tea production sites at the borderlands of Northern Thailand. And you can see a lot of tea productions there, okay? So tea as a transplanted crop, changed the border landscape. And tea as a cash crop transformed the border landscape of Northern Thailand for the market economy. So I want to, really briefly talk about that. Tea as a transplanted crop at Northern Thailand in the past, OPM production is an underground, agricultural production. And at the same time, they got armed, communist there, okay? So the Thai government, before 1980s, the Thai government didn't really control its borderland at northern side. Okay, so the Thai government tried to solve the problem with the Thai Royal Project, try to transform the opium production into other kind of cash crop production. So Taiwanese tea used this kind of chance to get into Northern Thailand. So this picture shows the Taiwanese tea expert. They went to Northern Thailand to teach the KMT soldiers how to plant teas there, okay? So they clear the forest there and build up the tea plantation sites, and so-called the modernization of the agriculture at North Thai borderlands. They had the tea factories, electricities, everything, water tank, new roads get into, but at the same time, they change the landscape at the borderlands a lot. Okay, so tea as a cash crop also, has, transformed the borderlands into a tea space and connected to the tea market all around the world. So Taiwan inside out in Thailand, the findings and challenges, we found that tea as a transplanted crop, we actually, the tea from Taiwan, went to the north borderlands of Thailand. Turns out it's a kind of a political process to help the Thai state to control its territory. Why is that? Because tea is different. Tea, they will have the land measurements, right? So they got the clearer land information, right? They clear up the forest. Remember that? So clear up the forest and measure the lands into the clear numbers. So the Thai government will clearly know who plant how much tea at where. Okay, so they got this kind of land information, the information about the frontier people, the borderland peoples there. So for the Thai government, it's more like a political territorialization for Thailand to help them to keep the maintenance of order. So the Taiwanese tea actually help the Thai government to practice its sovereignty at its border area. But it also caused the environmental concern, okay, the economic redistribution of resources and flows of goods via monocropping. Tea has been the monocropping, right? So it creates like the environmental issue. If we don't have the forest, then we lost, for example, the biodiversity at the original landscape, right? And tea, we use pesticides, that kind of thing. So at the same time, we also create another many kinds of environmental issues in Thailand. So Taiwanese tea, the migration of Taiwanese tea from Taiwan to Thailand actually create, somehow we have to be careful on that, right? We create the environmental issues outside Taiwan, okay? So, but inside Taiwan, like I told you, we want to highlight the local production right now. So I want to, because of the time, I apologize for that. In Taiwan, we right now import a lot of tea from outside. For example, from Thailand and from Vietnam. Okay, so in Taiwan, actually, we want to highlight the local production with food safety. Okay, so we want to highlight, for example, the picture shows here the 100% Taiwanese local tea. That means, it's healthy, it's safe, okay? But inside Taiwan, we try to, practice more organic production, environmentally friendly production. But we have to be careful if we actually move our agriculture from Taiwan to the outside world, for example, to Thailand, then probably we create the environmental concerns, not inside Taiwan, but we actually create the environmental concern outside Taiwan because of the agricultural transfer from Taiwan to the other country. Okay, so in the future, we have to think about that, especially, the technology, the agriculture technology in Taiwan is considered really advanced. And many countries outside Taiwan, they want to, to learn about the agriculture technology from Taiwan, but we have to be careful on that, right? Okay, so what do we learn from Taiwan? So the global and local agricultural food system, is it a binary opposition? Maybe not. Then we have to think more about the interdependence among places, among Taiwan and the other places, but at the same time, focus on the uniqueness of each specific places. For example, Taiwan and Thailand, they got their own political, agricultural, economic, cultural context there. Okay, so we consider Taiwan, from the border crossing of food and agriculture. We also reconsider people's everyday lives as the arena where different actors from different places, including human and non-human, tea, right? Tea as a non-human actors here. They encounter to do the multiple positioning of Taiwan in the world. Okay, so I'm sorry for the time. I kind of really rushed at the end. I apologize for that, but I want to have some time for the questions and comments here. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Hong, for a very, very insightful discussion about the challenges facing Taiwanese society in terms of agriculture and looking at different food products as a vehicle to really rethink about the localization and the globalization process. So audience, you can use the comments function either in YouTube or on Facebook to type your question.
Okay. So I got a question. Okay. So the first question is about, China stopped Taiwan's pineapple to China by sudden announcement without giving time for corrections. Can Taiwan go to WTO to complain about it? Maybe yes. I'm not sure yet. Will Taiwan able to prevent such kind of thing from happening again? I think we have to think about that too. So for example, right now we have Southbound Policy in Chinese called 南向政策. Southbound Policy. We want to build up closer connection between Taiwan and Southeast Asia. So if we only rely on China for our agriculture export, of course, there's a high risk, right? So in the future, probably we have to, build up multiple relationship in terms of agriculture trade relationship with other countries, not just, look at China as only one market we really want to go to try to, try to build up multiple trading relationship other than China. Okay, but actually Taiwan is doing that right now. And in terms of pineapple, I think most of the consumption of local production of Taiwanese pineapple, 90% of the local production of pineapple in Taiwan is actually consumed inside Taiwan. So only 10% of the pineapple produced locally in Taiwan export to the other country. And the inside the 10% of exportation of the pineapple, Taiwanese pineapple, 90% of the exportation goes to China. So yes, we have to change about that. So if you are in Taiwan right now, our society right now try to encourage Taiwanese people to consume more pineapples here. Okay, so from the Facebook or Instagram, you can see a lot of posts for people to consume the pineapples here in Taiwan. But yes, I think in the future we try to figure out a better way to deal with these kind of problems. I think the best way is that try to build up the multiple trading systems with other countries. Okay, so that's the first question. So the other question I had here are the younger actor moving to rural area to farm originally from this area, or are they completely new to the area? Okay, so that's a really good question. So actually for the younger actors, both. Okay, so one group of people, so-called the younger actors in the rural area, they will took maybe the farming lands from their fathers, okay, or grandfathers. So originally maybe their family has practiced the agriculture for a long time. But another group of people, they didn't really have the agriculture experiences. They just, try to take agriculture as their new career. So probably they will quit their job in Taipei as engineers, teachers, many kind of careers they have been doing in the urban area, and then try to go back to go to the rural area to take the agriculture as their new career and learn everything from the local farmers. So two kinds of people, they all go to the rural area in Taiwan to try to bring the new ideas back to the rural area and try to revitalize the agricultural economy in Taiwan. Okay, so the third question I had here, I'm sorry I cannot answer maybe many questions you have here. So the third one, could you comment a little more on Taiwan specific reasons for helping cultivate tea in Northern Thailand? Okay, so for the Thai government, they try to erase the poppy plantation, right? And try to practice the real sovereignty to the North Thai borderland through tea plantation. For the Taiwanese government at that time, because we have to think about that Taiwan, the international status of Taiwan is tricky, right? It's because of the complicated relationship between Taiwan and China. So Taiwan actually does not so-called officially recognized by the international community as a nation state, as a officially as a country, right? But but Taiwan still try to build up the international relationship or keep the international relationship beyond the so-called official diplomatic relations there. For example, we cannot join the United Nations. So briefly, so agriculture has become a kind of a way for Taiwan to build up the international relationship. We use the agricultural transfer for example, the processing technique of tea production back to the time when the Thai government tried to use tea to secure or to territorialize its North Thai borderlands. And Taiwanese government actually used the transfer of tea technology, tea species from Taiwan to Northern Thailand to keep the international relationship with Thailand. And that is because of the, the difficulty for Taiwan to formally recognize as a country in the international community. Okay, so it's kind of a short answer here. So I think I probably can only answer the one last question. What kind of support does the government provide to encourage local farming? Okay, so a lot of different kind of project. For example, I want to highlight, our government try to encourage the young people to go to the rural area to practice the agriculture, to take agriculture as their career. So we have programs to encourage, to provide, if they can, for example, write a proposal or something and try to convince our government, and they will, the younger generation will get some fund, okay, from our government, and kind of something like the initial funds for them to build up their agricultural career in the rural area, that kind of things. Okay, so thank you very much. I apologize again for the time control, for my bad time control here. And I hope you enjoy the talk and learn something from the talk. And thank you very much. Thank you for your listening. And I think that's the end of my talk here.